Welcome back. Week 10 is in the books. Week 11, the final game of non divisional action here in the regular season. The Antoine and Friends Football League is upon us. But first, a couple of news items from around the league. While we were away, historic election week, week 9 action coming at us. And then on election night, while everybody in the league was looking elsewhere, Return of the King and myself settled one of the blockbuster trades of this season. Now, I still think Achane and the Membrane has the best trade of the season, getting Amon-Ra St. Brown, who has continued his touchdown streak. I think it's up to 7 now uh, for J.K. Dobbins and Devontae Smith. No need to, go into further detail about how we feel about that one. But this trade, Josh Jacobs, who had a pretty bad game against the Lions, the game script revealed that Josh Jacobs is not going to be the workhorse in every situation, in exchange for Ramondre Stevenson, who has been inefficient but has been posting some gaudy numbers thanks to a career best 9 rushing touchdowns through the first half of the season, and Trey McBride, arguably the number 1 tight end in all of fantasy football. Return of the King now commanding the lion's share of the Arizona Cardinals passing game. Will he be looking to make a trade in this final week before the trade deadline of the league closes on November 15th? Kyler Murray is still out there. And the Marvin Harrison Jr. / Trey McBride / Kyler Murray stack could be very deadly coming down the home stretch as we return to divisional action. But before we look ahead to this critical week 11 of action, let's rewind to week 10 and our matchup of the week, where Troy Polamalu, finally at full strength, tries to knock off the undisputed number 1 in our power rankings, Achane in the Membrane, and almost gets the win. Let's see how Achane managed to pull it off. Now, to give you some context here, True had both running backs in this game, Kyren Williams and Devon Achane, and Demarcus Robinson on the Rams, but Troy only has Puka Nacua. And as you can see, Puka Nacua is able to get it done on some big catches through the air. We jump ahead now to the fourth quarter, where Puka Nacua does just enough to be able to give Troy a slight lead going into the final few minutes of the game. True starting to feel the heat here. Finally, Demarcus Robinson, who's been having a goose egg all night, starting for Nico Collins, gets this reception in the fourth quarter to take the lead. It is not over, though. Troy just needs a touchdown here from Puka Nacua to win the game. Matt Stafford looks at him, and it's incomplete. True wins again. That was the second most heartbreaking thing to happen on a football field this week after that incredible and devastating blocked field goal by the Chiefs to keep their undefeated season alive against the Denver Broncos, led by rookie quarterback Bo Nix. And boy, they call me the believer, and I think you could see why, even though don't ask why I didn't start him in this game. He is still looking like he is going to have an incredible career here in this league. Here are a couple more fun tidbits from that Achane versus Troy matchup to make you feel better about your fantasy season. That is the second loss in a row for Troy Polamalu by 5 points or less. His 5th loss by 5 points or less of the season. In fact, while it didn't happen this week, 4 of those losses, yes, 4 times this season, Troy was one bad decision away from winning the game. That's right. 4 times out of his 5 losses by 5 points or less, if he starts one player different, he wins the game, and he would be in the playoff picture right now. Just shows how close the margins can be in the Antoine and Friends Football League. Let's look ahead at our big board to see all the action coming at us in Week 11, the final non-divisional game of the season. And starting it off, it is our game of the week. Bo Lever, myself, against Achane in the Membrane. I have circled this matchup for weeks as the one that I am going to lose. Achane is very comfortably going to win this one. He has over 1,400 points scored, and nobody else has over 1,300. The pace he has been setting is record breaking. And even though right now Division 3 has 4 teams, including myself, in the playoff picture 2, 4, 5, and 6, myself at 5 and 5. This is the game I think sends me back below 500 after finally clawing my way there. This is just too much firepower to take on in what is sure to be a wire to wire contest. But I just think the firepower on the other side is too much. Lamar Jackson, the number 1 player in all of fantasy, he's going to put up a 30 burger, even against Coach Tomlin, who said Mr. Jackson is coming to town. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 7 touchdowns in a row, going to make it 8 against a pitiful Jacksonville Jaguars defense. Nico Collins, after getting the last second sit last week, he is widely expected to start on Monday Night Football against a fading Dallas Cowboys team this week. Devon Achane and Kyron Williams both did fairly poorly on Monday Night Football. You cannot keep these two down for 2 games in a row. The projections bear out. I expect multiple touchdowns from each of them on the ground today. And then Evan Ingram, you'd rather have Trevor Lawrence back there than Mac Jones. But either way, Evan Ingram has been getting it done. DeAndre Swift, probably the one player that I expect to have a little bit tougher game this week because of what I expect to be a negative game script against the Green Bay Packers. Look out for 2 key matchups in this game. Number 1, Jordan Love against Josh Jacobs. One scores, the other doesn't. It's pretty straightforward. It's a binary thing. And then on that same front, Tua Tagovailoa against Devon Achane. I am staying away from Tyreek Hill. That wrist injury that he is apparently re-aggravated has just been terrible all season. He just got into the end zone for the first time since week 1. It is sad, but for as long as I can, I would like to stick with Kareem Hunt before Isaiah Pacheco gets back. Get one more game against that exploitable Buffalo Bills run defense. TJ Hawkinson has slotted right back into this Minnesota passing attack. I like to see Sam Darnold not starting on the other side there. Kenneth Walker has been in a mini slump. San Francisco's a tough matchup. Not feeling great about that. Terry McLaurin against the Eagles. This is probably the best matchup I have this week. Commanders have scored 30 points or more in their last 3 matchups against the Eagles. I hope the Commanders continue that trend here on Thursday Night Football. It is a prime video matchup, and you know that those can be stinkers. Last week, Ravens and Bengals notwithstanding. Ja'Marr Chase is Ja'Marr Chase, but he's got a tough matchup on the road in Los Angeles against that Chargers defense that has been fairly stingy this season. Coming off a 55-point game, too. That is let down spot written all over it. At the end of the day, 55% favorite makes him only a slim favorite over me in this contest, but he is our number 1 in the power rankings, number 1 in points scored. I have been expecting to lose this game for over a month. Now that it's here, it feels doable, but I just think Achane in the membrane is going to keep rolling here and get to 9 wins and seal up that Division 2 championship before we even get back to the divisional matchups. Next on the docket, we have Megatron against Otto Pickens. This is a massive game for Megatron, who next week is looking at the lowest points projected in the history of the Antoine and Friends Football League, projected to get only 30 points, with Caleb Williams and CeeDee Lamb playing and everyone else on his bench and starting lineup on a bye week. It is almost impossible for him to put it together a full starting lineup next week. He has to win this game against a very good Otto Pickens squad in order to keep his playoff hopes alive, considering he is going to lose next week. Let's dive in to see if he's got a chance. Otto Pickens is a slightly heavier favorite than Achane and the membrane is over me, and we can see why looking at the matchups. Kirk Cousins and Darnell Mooney has been a stack of a stack this season. Darnell Mooney, top 12 wide receiver on the year. Sonic, Knuckles, Sam Laporta. The Detroit Lions trio has been unstoppable all season. It's the one trio all on the same team that has worked out essentially every week for Otto Pickens, and I expect it to work out again here. And oh boy, it doesn't hurt to have A.J. Brown and DeAndre Hopkins, the new number one receiver for the Kansas City Chiefs, as his number one and number two wide receivers. And wrapping it all up, Jacoby Myers as basically the only game in town not named Brock Bowers for the Las Vegas Raiders. He's got a very tough matchup against the Miami Dolphins, but overall, a very strong squad going into this week 11 of action. Megatron, though, pulled off the upset last week against a very strong Achilles heel squad, and he's looking to make another miracle happen. CeeDee Lamb looking like he's on life support for his season with Cooper Rush and or Trey Lance in the mix. James Cook is the centerpiece of this offense now. The Buffalo Bills ground game is probably the best chance for Buffalo to knock off this undefeated Chiefs team. But this is ugly right here. Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Tyler Algier, all Falcons players opposite of Kirk Cousins. Man, watch out for this one. If Kirk Cousins passes to Darnell Mooney for a touchdown, this team is cooked. It is cooked. Derek Carr, though, with a surprisingly efficient and great start last week against the Falcons. Derek Carr is a sneakily good quarterback. The weapons are very highly suspect. Marquez Valdez-Scantling is not going to be putting up triple-digit yards every week. I don't know who's going to be the new number one receiver in New Orleans this week, but I don't expect Derek Carr to put up top 10 quarterback numbers again. This 12.6 feels like it's in the right range. This next one isn't even going to get a deep dive. It's 666 against Cup This Chubb. Cup This Chubb has got to win this game, and 666 doesn't look capable of winning a game. Once again, projected under 100 points. The J.K. Dobbins Devontae Smith deal has done little to nothing for this languishing 666 offense. He's looking to fight off relegation, and a win here in the final non-divisional game would go a long way to helping to fight that off. But with Troy Polamalu surging and Cup This Chubb getting his team back together, the opportunities for 666 to get back into the win column are looking slim to none, and Slim just left town. Cup This Chubb looking to cruise here and get back into the hunt with a 5-6 record after this one. This one was my runner up for the game of the week because the stakes just could not be higher for each of these teams. Feels like an elimination game, could be an elimination game for one of them. It's more like underdog will probably get in if he wins. Return of the King probably out if he loses. Very tight matchup here, but underdog just doesn't have the lineup this week with bye weeks to really compete for this one. Malik Neighbors and James Conner both on a bye. They have been essential ingredients to this underdog squad. Chase Brown has really emerged as a potential league winner for underdog in the last few games here. He's looking to keep rolling on Sunday Night Football. Jaden Daniels looking to keep doing what he's been doing and continue this Rookie of the Year campaign. Devontae Adams continuing to build rapport back with Aaron Rodgers. I think he gets into the end zone this week against a pitiful Indianapolis Colts team that just looks like they are about ready to throw in the towel on the season. Taysom Hill, I liked the first start that he did. Now continuing to start him over Freiermuth feels like a mistake, but Taysom Hill is that shiny object who gets utilized in the red zone in fun and exciting ways. If he gets in the end zone, this is a great pick, but I don't think he does this week against the Cleveland Browns. I would probably start Freiermuth here, but he's going to stick with Taysom Hill, it looks like. Raheem Mostert only got got no carries in that last game. Got a reception or two. He's gotten 10 touches or more in each game before this season. I think he'll bounce back. I don't see this as a Javonte Williams situation, but I don't think he should be started here. There are other assets on the bench, Jameson Williams, Tyler Lockett, both risky to be sure, but I like them better than Raheem Mostert this week. On the other side, Return of the King, Josh Allen, great. Tank Dell, good. Cedric Tillman, good. Derrick Henry, world beater. Ramondre Stevenson, inefficient, but gets it done. Workhorse back for that New England Patriots team against a very beatable Los Angeles Rams team. I think he'll get back into the end zone here, put up his most yards of the season last week, but didn't get into the end zone. Had a rather disappointing fantasy total, no receptions, 14 rushes, 83 yards. Decent game, most efficient he's had of the season, but just not great from a fantasy perspective. I see him bouncing back here a little this week. Jake Ferguson in the spot start for Trey McBride, who's on a bye. This is tough. Monday Night Football, you get the fun of having somebody in the last slot of the week, but oh man, let's just hope it doesn't come down to Jake Ferguson for your sake, because I think it's going to be tough to get done with Cooper Rush or Trey Lance throwing in the rock. Jauan Jennings, here's a fact for you. There is one player in fantasy with more fantasy points per route run than Jauan Jennings, and that is Justin Jefferson. Not elite production from Jauan Jennings, but elite efficiency based on the utilization for Mr. Jennings. And I think it continues here for the de facto new number 2 wide receiver in San Francisco now that Mr. Brandon Ayuk is out for the year. Trevor Lawrence, hoping to get him back. Mac Jones, not a good option to pivot to. And this gentleman has nothing to go to as far as quarterbacks are concerned. Hoping to get Brian Robinson Jr. back, but it is a Thursday night football game. That's good and bad. Bad because not as much time to, get full practices in and be fully cleared to play. Good because, if you don't have him, you have literally everybody else in the league that you can pivot to. KD over TDs here against Garth Mall. This is another bounce back opportunity for Garth Mall, who, like Cutlass Chubb, after dropping to 4-6, you feel like you gotta get a win here to jump back into the win column, jump back into the playoff hunt. On the surface, though, pretty significant favorite here from KD over TDs. The good news for Garth Mall is she does have the number 1 waiver claim. Waivers are about to process here any minute. I'm expecting Garth Mall with that number 1 waiver pick to go for Audric Estime of the Denver Broncos. It is very, very unusual at this stage of the season to get a potential starting running back for the rest of the way just popping up on the waiver wires. But Audric Estime is exactly that after putting up 14 carries last week to Javonte Williams 1. Now, the one thing that is concerning about Estime is he's not going to get any work in the passing game. At least he hasn't thus far. There's still a little bit iffy on can he be trusted with the ball after fumbling in 2 of his first 4 carries. Certainly, they're not ready to put in the air towards the rookie yet, but 14 carries, dominated the touches against a Kansas City team last week that you would think would not be the place to start experimenting in the backfield. But they wanted to get a spark, and they found it with Estime. I think he's going to slot in nicely for what is a very confusing RB2 situation here in Jacksonville. Travis Etienne, stunning start to his career right now. Is he or isn't he the starter behind Tank Bigsby? He got all of the red zone and goal line work against the Minnesota Vikings last week, but he didn't punch one in, and that really contributed to a disappointing day on the ground for Etienne. Estime may be the spark that this team needs to get them through into the divisional round and into the playoffs at the end of this season. But it is starting to get late early here. And on the other side, you've got, yes, Matt Stafford and Drake May is a pitiful quarterback room. Matt Stafford got sacked 5 times last week. Didn't throw a touchdown. Hasn't thrown multiple touchdowns in any but one game this season, I think. But Justin Jefferson, Bijan Robinson, Travis Kelce, George Pickens, that is a mighty, mighty quad. That is the foundation of this team. Deebo Samuel, of course, no slouch himself, but Zach Charbonnet, a handcuff starting at this point in the season, shows how slim the pickings are to shift to. He'd like to get Audric Estime off the waivers this week, but you're going to have to see whether Garth Mall here passes on him when the waivers run. Last but certainly not least, you have got Troy Polamalu against Achilles heel. And oh boy, Troy Polamalu 2-8, but second most projected points for in the league. Christian McCaffrey, Puka Nacua back in the lineup. Geno Smith, number 1 quarterback in the NFL. George Kittle, JSN, Jared Goff, the Houston defense against the Dallas team that is just going to surrender points to this defense. Tyrone Tracy on a bye. I mean, this is a dangerous team for this home stretch. Not a good chance, if any, that he can sneak into the playoffs, but he can destroy some playoff dreams down the stretch here. And it starts potentially with Achilles heel. Troy Polamalu has lost his 2 games by less than 5 points. He is the favorite in this one. And yes, Achilles heel has got Jalen Hurts, number 3 player in all of fantasy, 3 weeks in a row with 30 points at the quarterback position. Garrett Wilson, who has just gotten more targets, more receptions since Davante Adams came to the picture. Josh Downs has been a little bit of a downer since he started the season fairly hot. Aaron Jones looked scary going out of that game last week, but came back in. Cam Akers was looking like he might have been the pickup of the week, but faded pretty quickly once Aaron Jones came back in. Tony Pollard, low projection here, just makes it easier to hit and easier to cover what is a fairly significant spread here, of course, early in the week. And then Aaron Rodgers, you know, she's benched him. He's done well on the bench. He's done terribly in the starting lineup. But I think between Aaron Rodgers and Jameis Winston, you got to pick A-Rod every single time. That's just common sense right there. And Bucky Irving, she's been making the wrong decision here week in and week out. Starts him, does bad, benches him, does great. This week can't hurt her. He's on a bye. And Isaiah Pacheco, not going to help out this week, but returning to help out with the home stretch if she can just get the upset here over Troy Polamalu. Funny to say a 6-4 team needs to get an upset over a 2-8 team, but it is what it is. She would love to get a win here and get some space in what is a very tight race for the playoffs in Division 3. And that is our roundup for week 11 in the Antoine and Friends Football League. Shifting gears momentarily to the Capper contest. We've been on a little bit of a hiatus the last couple of weeks. Week 9 interrupted by the wedding between 2 of our managers and election week. Only had a couple of cappers there. Capper of the week for week 9 was Garth Mall, who snuck in a 3-0 when a lot of the other managers were taking the week off. Big boost to her rank in the standings there. Week 10, we are on a bye week for the Capper contest. If you put in picks, I didn't see them. I'm not counting them. It's not happening that week. But that is why you're getting an early video this week, because I want to make sure we get a full complement of picks. It is the home stretch. It is anybody's game still right now for the Capper contest. Get those picks in. It's been incredible so far. Almost everybody is above 500 at this stage in the season, which is an unbelievable accomplishment, if I do say so myself. I'm hoping to get at least one more 6-0 before this season is out. Had a couple of 5-1s, had a few more 4-2s, only one 6-0 on the season. Who am I going to pick this week? Let's jump right in. Diving into my pick 6 for week 11, let's start out with the Washington Commanders on the road against the Philadelphia Eagles. Give me the 3 with the hook. Again, I think the Commanders get to that 30-point mark they've hit the last 3 times. Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders offense are just going to keep rolling here. I think this is going to be a close one. It's a divisional game, but give me that extra half a point. I can stand to lose by 3, and we'll still win this one. But I do like us to win outright. New England plus 4.5 at home against the fading Los Angeles Rams. This is really a bet on the New England defense and on the very capable performances of Drake May in the last few weeks. I think they do enough to get it done here against the Rams. I especially like them with the 4 with the hook. Could easily see them losing by 3. Could easily see them losing by 4. Hard to imagine the Patriots, who have played every game this season, it feels like, close, losing by a touchdown or more. I know they've done it against some very good teams this season. The Rams are not a very good team. New Orleans -1 versus Cleveland. This is just similar to when I picked the Chargers against Cleveland. I just love fading Jameis Winston. He's not very good. I think that win against the Ravens was very fluky and is now giving us some very favorable lines on what is a very bad Cleveland Browns football team. Give me the New Orleans Saints -1. Alvin Kamara and Derek Carr get it done here. San Francisco 49ers -6.5 against the Seattle Seahawks. This feels like a fairly big line, but this is really about the momentum of these two teams. San Francisco feels like they're getting it together after a very shaky start to the year. Christian McCaffrey back in the lineup. He's probably minus 300 or something to get into the end zone. And the Seattle Seahawks and Geno Smith, especially, has been playing very clumsy, klutzy football. Lots of botch but lots of botch snaps. We got a backup center here. We got Geno that's throwing picks and looking frazzled. It's just not a good look. DK Metcalf may or may not be getting back into the lineup for this one. Even if he does, I don't love him getting kind of rushed back into action here against a very playable San Francisco secondary. So give me the home favorites, the touchdown home favorites. I think we get it done by double digits here. San Francisco 49ers roll over the Seahawks. Buffalo minus 2.5 versus the Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City barely escaped with their unbeaten record last week against a Denver Broncos team that was a 7.5 point underdog coming into Arrowhead. This is a Buffalo Bills team that has played the Chiefs very tough, both in the regular season and the playoffs. The Chiefs have been winning the more important playoff games, but the Bills have been getting it done in the regular season. At home here, I think the Bills at it's a short line. It may not be short enough. I could see them winning by 1 or 2, and we get very sad here, but I still got to take the Buffalo Bills to win. I like them to score by a field goal here. Finally, wrapping it up, Sunday Night Football, Chargers minus 1.5 against the Cincinnati Bengals. It seems like the Bengals are the opposite of the Chiefs this year, where they are just losing in tragic fashion week in and week out. A failed 2 point conversion is all that separates them from a win last Thursday against the Ravens. The Chargers, though, have a much better defense this year than the Ravens, even though the Ravens, I feel like, have a reputation for good defenses. They've been very beatable through the air. Harbaugh has got a good running game and a good defense, which travel now paired up with a surging passing game behind Justin Herbert, who is a top 5 real quarterback in this league, if not necessarily in fantasy production. I expect the Chargers to win this game. I'd love it if it was just a flat 1 point, but I'll take the hook and I will hold my breath and hope it goes well. As always, here's the roundup of all 6 picks. Get your picks in. We're releasing this one on a Wednesday, a day early to make up for the week 10 bye week. Get your picks in. I know you're going to do great, but I hope you do badly on the fantasy field. See you out there, losers.